Welcome back to another episode of Cess Talk Sports and BY's Polysports Podcast, where we dive into the intersections of race, sports, politics, and culture. I'm your host, Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies, and joining me as always is my amazing co-host, Political Lil.
Hello, everyone. We're excited to have you here today as we tackle a sport that isn't often associated with Black women, but absolutely should be golf.
That's right, golf has long been viewed as a sport of choice for white men. Whether it's the iconic images of Augusta National or the exclusivity of country clubs, Black women have faced barriers that go far beyond the greens. But here's the thing, we've always had the talent, the drive, and the ability to dominate if given the opportunity.
Exactly. And in today's episode, we're going to celebrate the trailblazers who've proven through those barriers, who've driven through those barriers, examine why the sport has remained so exclusive, and explore what we can do to bring more Black women and girls into the game.
So here's the lineup for today's episode. First, we'll take a look at the history of Black women in golf, those who paved the way despite the odds. Then we'll dig into the barriers, everything from the cost of the game to the lingering effects of systemic racism that keep Black women out of this space.
We'll also shine a light on the role of historical Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, in offering access to the game. Did you know that some HBCUs have thriving golf programs that provide scholarships and training? We'll get into that.
And finally, we'll lay out some steps for the future. What can be done by organizations, schools, and the golf community at large to make this sport more inclusive for Black women? Because, Lil, let's face it, when you give us access, we excel.
No doubt about that. So grab your clubs and your headphones and get ready for an episode that's going to educate, inspire, and spark some important conversation.
Let's see off in today's discussion, starting with a trip down memory lane to explore the history of Black women in golf. Let's start this conversation by giving flowers to the trailblazers, the incredible Black women who've broken barriers in the world of golf. These women didn't just play the game, they changed it, Lil.
Absolutely. Let's kick off things with one of the most iconic names in both tennis and golf, Althea Gibson. Most people know her as a tennis legend, but did you know she also made history as the first Black golfer to compete in the LPGA?
Yes, after dominating tennis in the 1950s, winning Wimbledon and the US Open, Gibson transitioned to golf. In 1964, she broke yet another barrier by becoming the first Black woman to join the Ladies Professional Golf Association, or LPGA. And she did all of this while facing the same racial discrimination and exclusion that existed in both sports.
Right. Gibson's journey wasn't easy. Many of the country clubs where LPGA tournaments were held didn't even allow Black members, let alone competitors. She had to fight for every opportunity, and she still paved the way for those who came after her.
When we talk about breaking barriers in golf, the first name that often comes to mind is Tiger Woods. But long before him, there was Ann Gregory, an absolute pioneer in the sport, and the first Black woman to compete in a USGA championship event. And her story isn't just about golf, it's about resilience and breaking through systemic barriers.
That's right. Ann Gregory didn't even start playing golf until she was 31 years old. Her husband went off to serve in World War II, and that's when she picked up the game. She quickly dominated, winning over 300 tournaments during her career. And despite facing racial segregation on and off the course, she never backed down.
Exactly. In 1956, she became the first Black woman to play in a USGA championship event, the U.S. Women's Amateur. She also competed in the U.S. Senior Women's Amateur well into her 70s. And let's not forget, she did this at a time when Black golfers weren't even allowed on many courses.
And she didn't just play, she won. She took home multiple national and state championships, proving that talent and determination couldn't be denied. What's powerful is that Ann Gregory paved the way for Black women in golf long before the LPGA saw players like Althea Gibson or today's stars like Mariah Stackhouse.
Absolutely. She set the foundation. And her story is a reminder that Black women in sports have always had to fight for their place, not just to compete, but to be recognized. Ann Gregory's legacy is one of quiet strength, excellence, and perseverance. And it's time more people know her name. Her story is told in the movie Playing Through 2022, now available on Amazon Prime.
Facts. If we're talking about trailblazers in golf, Ann Gregory has to be in that conversation.
Speaking of those who came after her, we can't forget Renee Powell. She was the second Black woman to join the LPGA Tour, and her contributions to golf go far beyond her playing career. Renee grew up in East Canton, Ohio, learning the game from her father, who built one of the first black owned golf courses in the United States.
That's right. Power played on the LPGA tour during the 60s and 70s, a time when racial tension in America was at its peak. But her story doesn't end there. She spent decades mentoring young golfers and promoting diversity in the sport. She even launched girls' golf program at Clearview Golf Club, the course that her father built.
Renee's legacy is so powerful and it shows that representation matters. But let's not stop there. Let's give some love to modern day stars like Shasta Averhart, Sadida Parks, and Mariah Stackhouse. These women are carrying the torch and showing the world that black women have a place in the greens.
Mariah Stackhouse in particular is making waves. She was a standout at Stanford, becoming the first black woman to compete on the U.S. Curtis Cup team. And she's now making her mark on the LPGA tour. It's incredible to see her holding her own and inspiring the next generation.
But let's not sugarcoat things. The road for these women hasn't been easy. Historically, black women in golf have faced systemic racism, from being excluded from country clubs to outright hostility on professional circuits. Even today, the cost of entry into golf equipment, lessons, club memberships is a major barrier.
And let's not forget the perception of golf as a wealthy elite sport. That's a narrative that has been used to keep us out for decades. The idea that you have to come from privilege to play golf is a lie. But it's a lie that has been used to exclude black people, especially women.
Exactly. But despite all of that, these trailblazers have proven that we belong in this space. Their stories are a testament to resilience and excellence, and they remind us why it's so important to break down these barriers.
So true. And with that, let's pivot to the present day. What's keeping black women out of golf now? And what needs to change to create a more inclusive future?
Yeah, now that we've looked at the trailblazers who opened the door to golf for black women, let's talk about why so many of us still find it hard to walk through that door today. There are some significant barriers keeping black women out of the sport, and it starts with money.
Absolutely. Golf is one of the most expensive sports to get into. Think about it. Equipment alone can cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Then you add in culture fees, green fees for access to the courses, and country club membership. For many black families, that's the kind of investment that just isn't realistic.
Exactly. Even for those who do make it through those financial hurdles, there's still the issue of sponsorship. Let's keep it real. Black women in golf don't get the same opportunities as their white counterparts when it comes to brand endorsements and sponsorship deals. That lack of financial backing can stall a promising career before it even gets started.
Right. And then that's that cultural side of things. Golf has long been marked, and let's be honest, gate kept as a sport for wealthy white men. That perception doesn't just discourage black women from playing, it sends a message that we don't belong in those spaces.
And the lack of visible role models doesn't help either. When young black girls look at sports, they see Serena Williams in tennis, Simone Biles in gymnastics, or Asia Wilson and Angel Reese in basketball. But how many can name a black woman golfer? Visibility matters, and without it, young girls don't even know this is a path they can take.
That's such a good point. And let's talk about structural barriers too. Golf is still tied to exclusivity. Country clubs, where most young golfers hone their skills, are often members only. And those memberships are not just expensive, but also steeped in a history of racial exclusion.
And don't get me started on the media. Black women golfers get minimal coverage, if any at all. When the media ignores us, it reinforces the idea that we're not part of the golf world and makes it harder for us to attract the sponsorships and opportunities we were just talking about.
It's a cycle. Lack of access leads to lack of visibility, which leads to fewer opportunities, and it just keeps going. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that way. There are solutions, and that's what we're going to discuss next.
That's right. We're going to explore how HBCUs and community initiatives are stepping up to create pathways for black women in golf and what else needs to happen to make this sport truly inclusive. Now that we've laid out the challenges, let's shift gears and talk about what's being done to change the game. Starting with historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs. These schools are playing a critical role in creating opportunities for black golfers.
That's true. While golf might not be the first sport you associate with HBCUs, several of them do have golf programs, and they're making strides in both supporting men and women in the sport. One of the most notable programs is at Howard University, where which was reintroduced in 2019 thanks to incredible sponsorship from NBA superstar Steph Curry.
Facts. Steph Curry's commitment is a game changer. He donated $6 million to revive Howard's golf program, covering scholarships, equipment, and operating costs for 6 years. But here's the key question: does his sponsorship include a women's golf team or just a men's program?
From what I found out, the funding does include a focus on women's golf. Howard has a co ed golf program, meaning women golfers are getting access to the same resources. It's a significant step towards making golf more inclusive, even at the college level.
That's fire. But Howard isn't the only HBCU making moves in golf. Schools like Prairie View A&M, North Carolina A&T, and Alabama State also have women golf teams. These programs are critical because they create a pipeline for young black women to enter the sport, often with scholarship often with scholarship support.
And speaking of scholarships, that's another area where HBCUs can really make an impact. Increasing scholarship opportunity for black women golfers not only helps ease the financial burden, but also signals that they belong in the sport.
And beyond HBCUs, there are grassroots initiatives stepping up to introduce golf to underserved communities. Programs like First Tee are leading the charge. They're teaching kids not just the fundamentals of golf, but also life skills like integrity, perseverance, and confidence.
First Tee is doing amazing work, and there are others as well. For example, LPGA Girls Golf Initiative has been instrumental in reaching young black girls and getting them excited about the game. These programs are critical because they plant a seed early, showing these girls that golf is for them too.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the importance of mentorship. Programs like Renee Powell's Clearview Legacy Foundation are not only introducing young girls to golf, but also providing them with role models who navigated the sport themselves.
These initiatives are inspiring, but they're just the beginning. If we truly want to open the doors for black women in golf, we need more investment, more visibility, and more partnerships within programs that are already doing the work.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk about what else needs to happen to create a more inclusive future for black women in golf and how we can all play a part in making that happen. Let's first examine and then see if we can get over the fear of black dominance in golf. Let's dive into a topic that's often whispered about but rarely discussed openly: the fear of black dominance in golf. We've seen this story play out in so many other sports, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. Look at what happened in tennis when Serena and Venus Williams entered the sport, or basketball when players like Cheryl Swoop and Don Stanley came aboard. Every time black athletes break into a predominantly white space, there's resistance. It's a pattern of trying to preserve the status quo, and golf is no exception.
You're so right. Historically, golf has been tightly controlled. It wasn't until 1961 that the PGA even lifted its Caucasian only clause. And even after that, systemic barriers like country club exclusions and financial hurdles kept black players on the sidelines. Could it be that part of this resistance comes from a fear of what happens when those barriers come down?
I think it's more than possible. The dominance of black athletes in other sports has shown the world that when we get access, we excel. That can feel threatening to people who've built their identities around exclusivity and control. The narration of golf being a gentleman's sport, or let's be honest, a rich white man's sport, feeds into that fear.
And it's not just about the fear of losing on the court. It's also on the course. It's also about losing the image of exclusivity that golf has worked so hard to maintain. That's why representation matters so much. When people like Mariah Stackhouse make it to the professional level, they're not just competing; they're breaking down those stereotypes.
And speaking of Mariah Stackhouse, let's take a moment to celebrate her achievements. She's one of the few black women on the LPGA tour and has been making waves ever since her standout college career at Stanford. Her presence alone is proof that when given the opportunity, black women can thrive in sports, in golf, just like any other sport.
Facts. And it's not just about her skills on the course. Mariah has become a visible role model for young black girls who might not have seen themselves in this sport otherwise. She's showing the next generation that golf is a space where they belong.
And it's not just Mariah either. The achievement of golfers like Renee Powell and Sedina Parks continue to inspire. proving that success in golf isn't about fitting into someone else's narrative, it's about redefining it.
Right. We've been talking about the fear of black dominance in golf, how the sport has historically resisted major disruptions to its so called traditions. And when we talk about who gets left out of the conversation, we have to acknowledge some incredible black women golfers who are either ignored by mainstream media or never given the push they deserve.
Oh, you already know. Because here's the thing, when black women do break into these spaces, even if they're talented, they don't always get the backing that helps build superstars. So let's shine a light on some of these women right now.
Let's start with India Winslow. This woman is the definition of multi talented. She was a pro golfer, but she's also made a huge name for herself as a fitness trainer and voiceover artist. She was one of the few black women to play professionally, but the golf world barely gave her any shine.
And that's wild because Adina is a perfect example of how versatility and dynamic black women in golf are. Instead of being celebrated, she had to pivot and carve her own lane outside of the sport. Imagine if she had received the same type of media backing and sponsorship opportunities as some of these white players.
Exactly. Then you have Larissa, who was actually one of the first black women to earn full time status on the LPGA Tour in the late 90s. She played college golf at UCLA, was an NCAA All American, and made history just by being on tour. But you don't hear her name being mentioned alongside golf pioneers.
And that's not by accident. Black women's history in golf has been intentionally buried. It's the same story. When we do make it, they downplay our presence, minimize our impact, and then act like we never existed.
hmm And let's talk about Clemmy Perry, because she's been doing the work to make sure black women don't keep getting erased. She founded Women of Color Golf, an organization that helps bring black and brown women into the game.
That's major because access is still a problem. You can't have black women dominating a sport when they can't even get into the sport. Clemmy Perry saw the barriers and said, "Nah, let's fix this ourselves." She's created a pipeline that golf governing bodies refuse to build.
And speaking of future dominance, we need to talk about Zoe Slaughter. She's still a college golfer at Texas A&M, but this girl is serious. A straight up force in the NCAA. We always say representation matters, and she's proven that black women belong at every level of golf.
Yes, but here's what I worry about. How many young, talented black golfers like Zoe never get to the next level because they don't have access to the same elite coaching, private courses, or even corporate sponsorships?
It's a cycle. They make sure our talent stays in the shadows so we never build momentum. And even when someone like Cheyenne Woods comes along, who, let's be clear, is Tiger Woods' niece, she still wasn't given the same push as other players with way fewer accomplishments.
Right. She had the name, she had the skill. She even won a pro tournament, but they never market her like the next big thing. Meanwhile, white golfers who never have won on tour were being hyped as the next LPGA superstars.
So, what does all this tell us? That the fear of black dominance in golf is real? It's not just about individual players, it's about making sure we never gain too much ground. Because the moment we do, the game changes.
And they don't want that. But here's the thing, we already infiltrated the sport, and the work is being done to make sure we stay. It's only a matter of time before black women break through in a big way. And when we do, the game will never be the same.
Exactly. The fear of black dominance in golf isn't just unfounded, it's a reminder of how much potential is being left untapped. And the more we celebrate these trailblazers, the more we chip away at those outdated fears and open doors for the next wave of black women in golf.
And speaking of the next wave, in the next segment, we're going to explore what is going on to try to create a truly inclusive future in golf for black women and for everyone else.
All right, family, let's wrap up this conversation with a forward looking focus. What will it take to create a truly inclusive future in golf for black women and girls? Let's start with expanded access. What are some ways we can make golf more accessible?
It starts at the grassroots level. Schools, community programs, and sponsors all have a role to play. For example, organizations like First Tee are already introducing golf to underserved communities. Imagine if more sponsors follow Steph Curry's lead by funding programs specifically for black girls.
Exactly. But it's not just about funding programs. Families and communities can also play a huge role by advocating for access to local courses and pushing for inclusion in school athletics. It's about building a culture that says golf is for everyone, not just for the wealthy or the privileged.
Absolutely. And that brings us to representation and mentorship. We can't underestimate the importance of having visible role models. When young black girls see someone like Mariah Stackhouse or Renee Powell, it inspires them to think, I can do that.
Right. And that's why mentorship is so crucial. Professional golfers and even college athletes can have a massive impact by engaging in outreach programs. It's not just about playing the sport, it's about giving back and creating pathways for others to follow.
And let's not forget the power of institutions. Golf associations, schools, and private sponsors need to take proactive steps to promote diversity. It can't be just lip service. They need to put resources behind these efforts.
Agreed. Now let's talk about the big picture policy and structural changes. What are some of the barriers we need to break down at an institutional level?
Well, one of the biggest barriers is access to country clubs, which are still incredibly exclusive. We need to push for greater inclusivity in these spaces. That means reevaluating membership policies and making courses more accessible to the public.
And it's not just about access to courses. Sponsorships and media representation also play a huge role. Black women golfers deserve equitable sponsorship deals and consistent media coverage that showcases their talent, not just token mentions.
Exactly. Media coverage is so important because it shapes how the public perceives the sport and who belongs in it. If we want to normalize seeing black women in golf, they need to be visible in commercials, tournaments, and magazines.
So, to recap, expanding access, representation, mentorship, and systemic change are all critical. Golf has the potential to be a sport for everyone, but it's going to take a collective effort to make that vision a reality.
That's right. And the beauty of this is that by breaking down barriers for black women, we make the sport better and more inclusive for everyone.
In our journey to understand the future of golf for black women, let's turn our attention to the role of historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs. These institutions have been pivotal in creating opportunities for young black golfers. What's the latest on HBCU golf programs?
Well, let's start with a shining example Delaware State University. Did you know they have both men and women golf teams? In September of 2021, they were one of just four HBCUs selected by the PGA Tour to receive a $100,000 grant. This funding is being used to support and enhance their golf program. It's a huge step in building competitive teams and attracting more young talent to the sport.
That's incredible. It's great to see resources being directed to programs that can nurture future stars in golf. And speaking of resources, let's talk about scholarships. What's out there for HBCU students interested in golf?
Well, one of the most significant scholarships is the Charlie C4 Scholarship Fund. That's named after the first black player on the PGA Tour. This scholarship is aimed at students attending HBCUs or those focusing on golf management programs. It's about more than just funding. It's about building a legacy to ensure that young black golfers have the tools they need to thrive both on and off the courses.
What a powerful way to honor Charlie Siffer's legacy. Programs like those show what progress is possible when we prioritize access and investment. Do you think initiatives like this are enough to level the playing field?
They're definitely a start, but there's work to do. It's not just about creating opportunities, it's about making sure these students feel supported, valued, and included every step of the way. HBCUs and scholarships like these are laying the foundation, but we need more engagement from a broader golf community to truly make a difference.
Absolutely. To our listeners, if you're inspired by these programs, consider supporting them or advocating for similar initiatives in your own communities. Together, we can create a pipeline of talent that changes the face of golf.
Exactly. It's about opening doors and showing the world that black golfers, especially black women, belong in this sport.
Couldn't agree more. Let's now discuss how grassroots initiatives are further expanding access to golf for black girls and women. Now that we've explored the challenges black women face in golf, let's take a moment to highlight some incredible initiatives working to change the narrative and open doors for the next generation of golfers. Let's start with scholarships. There are some powerful opportunities out there.
That's such an important legacy to uphold, especially for students at HBCUs. Another notable program is the LPGA Foundation Scholarship. These scholarships are open to young women who love golf and plan to attend college. They emphasize both academics and athletic excellence, showing that golf is about more than just playing. It's about building a well-rounded future. And beyond scholarships, these are organizations dedicated to diversifying golf and fostering community. Let's talk about the Black Girls Golf, founded by Tiffany Frazier in 2013. This organization creates a safe space for women and girls to learn to play golf regardless of their skill level. They're doing the work to make the sport more inclusive.
That's fantastic. And then there's City Girls Golf, which offers clinics and training specifically for women of color. It's not just about the game, it's about creating a community where black women can network, socialize, and grow through golf.
Right, and another group worth mentioning is Queens of the Green, Queens on the Green. This initiative combines golf with community engagement, empowering women of color to break barriers and feel confident in spaces where they've historically been underrepresented.
I love that. And speaking of breaking barriers, the Butterfly Golf Initiative by Greenwood Golf is another amazing effort. Launched in 2023, it's all about promoting diversity in golf and inspiring women to embrace their freedom through the sport. It's proof that innovation in this space is alive and well.
It really is. And we can't forget about Triangle Women in Golf, founded back in 1997. This organization promotes golf among African American women in the Raleigh Durham area. They offer tournaments, scholarships, and youth programs, ensuring that the love of the game is passed on to the next generation.
These initiatives are doing incredible work to create opportunities and build community for black women in golf. It's so inspiring to see this kind of momentum in a sport that's been so exclusive for so long. Any final thoughts on the importance of these programs?
Well, these programs show us that change is possible when we invest in access, education, and representation. They're creating a pipeline of talent. More importantly, they're showing black women and girls that golf is for them too.
And that's the message we need to amplify. To everyone listening, if you're looking for ways to support or get involved, check out these programs and see how you can contribute. Together, we can drive real change in golf.
That's right. Let's keep the momentum going, one swing at a time.
Well said. And on that note, let's keep this conversation moving forward. Now, let's look at the role of corporate and organizational support in breaking down barriers. We've seen progress at the institutional level, but let's talk about the role of corporate partnerships and national organizations in promoting diversity and inclusion in golf. What's happening in the corporate space to support black women in the sport?
Corporate partnerships and national organizations are essential in driving real change. And one noteworthy initiative is the LPGA's See Me Action Plan. This plan is a comprehensive effort by the Ladies Professional Golf Association to promote diversity and inclusion within the sport. It outlines specific initiatives and goals aimed at supporting underrepresented groups, including black women golfers.
That's impressive. It's about more than just participation, it's about creating a supportive environment for growth and success. What else is making waves in this space?
Another exciting collaboration is the partnership between Spark Golf and Black Girls Golf. Together, they're working on several initiatives focused on inclusivity. Spark Golf, known for its social golf leagues, is committing to expanding access and creating opportunities for black women to engage in the game.
These partnerships are essential in providing platforms for black women to thrive in golf. When big names and organizations collaborate, the reach is far greater. How do you see this evolving?
Well, with continued support from organizations like these, we can expect more visibility, more opportunities, and ultimately more inclusivity in competitive and recreational golf. The moment is here. We just need to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. It's encouraging to see these efforts make a tangible difference. Let's keep the conversation going and spotlight more impactful initiatives. Let's explore how media representation can shape the future of black women in golf.
And don't forget to engage with us on social media and share your thoughts. We love hearing from our listeners.
We've talked about the history, the challenges, and the triumphs of black women in golf. But let's get into something just as important: media representation. How do you think the way black women are portrayed or even ignored in golf media impacts their future in the sport?
Oh, it's a game changer. Visibility creates opportunity, and right now, black women in golf are still fighting for that spotlight. Let's be real. When people see themselves reflected in the media, It reinforces the ideal that they belong. But when they don't, it sends a message that this space isn't for them. And that has been the case with golf for a very long time.
Absolutely. And when we do see black women in golf, it's often in a very specific, limited way. We get the occasional highlight of someone like Mariah Stackhouse or Cheyenne Woods, but it's nowhere near the level of coverage given to white or even Asian women in the sport.
Exactly. And let's talk about narrative control because the media doesn't just decide who gets seen, but how they're seen. When a black woman golfer does get a little coverage, it's often framed around struggles or breaking barriers rather than just celebrating her skill and accomplishments.
Right. Like, why does it always have to be about overcoming something? Why can't we just get a segment about their game, their training, or their journey like they do for Nelly Corda or Lexi Thompson?
Bingo. And it affects more than just women on tour. It impacts sponsorship, youth participation, and even funding for programs that introduce golf to black girls. When black women don't get the media push, companies hesitate to invest in them, and that limits their ability to grow their brand, attract young talent, and ultimately change the landscape of the sport.
So it needs to change because we can't sit around waiting for mainstream golf media to do right by us.
We need our own platforms to push these stories. Podcasts like this, independent sports media, social media influencers, we have to tell the stories ourselves and create a demand for visibility. Also, major networks need to be held accountable. Golf channels, ESPN, all of them. They need to broaden their coverage beyond the same few names they always push.
And let's not forget black owned media and brands stepping up. Because when we create the narrative, we control the image. That means highlighting rising black women golfers consistently, not just during Black History Month or when a racial issue comes up in the sport.
Exactly. Because when young black girls see black women thriving in golf, not just surviving, but thriving, they start to believe they can do it too. And that's how we break down that cycle.
Whew, this conversation is powerful. Representation matters, and it's time for black women in golf to get the same level of coverage, respect, and investment as everybody else.
And we're going to keep pushing for that every chance we get.
The combined efforts of HBCUs, organizations, and corporate partners have led to a gradual increase in the participation of black women in golf. However, challenges remain, including financial barriers, limited access to facilities, and the need for more representation at professional levels. Continued support for scholarships, community programs, and inclusive policies is essential to sustain and accelerate this progress. By fostering an environment that welcomes and nurtures black female golfers, the sport can move towards greater diversity and inclusivity, reflecting the rich tapestry of its participants. We've covered a lot today, from trailblazers to current challenges and the exciting initiatives working towards a more inclusive future in golf. Let's take a moment to recap some of the key points.
Absolutely. We've seen the incredible resilience of black women in golf. And while progress has been made, there are still significant financial, social, and structural barriers that need to be addressed.
That's right, from the early pioneers like Althea Gibson to today's advocates like Mariah Stackhouse and initiatives like Spark Golf and Black Girls Golf, there's a clear path forward. However, change takes effort and support from all of us.
So, what can our listeners do to get involved? We want to encourage everyone to support programs that promote diversity and inclusion in golf, particularly initiatives at HBCUs and grassroots organizations.
Exactly. Whether it's donating to scholarship funds like Charlie Sifford's scholarship or volunteering to mentor young black girls in golf, every action counts. Every step forward brings us closer to a more equitable golf community.
And don't forget to spread awareness, share stories, engage with organizations on social media, and support media that highlights black women in golf. Together, we can amplify these voices.
Absolutely. Together we can break down barriers and ensure that black women have equitable opportunities to participate and excel in the sport. Let's keep the momentum going.
Thank you for joining us on Cess Talk Sports and the Be Wise Poly Sports Podcast. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions. And remember, change begins with us.
Thank you all for tuning in today and for being part of this critical conversation. Together we can make a difference. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Share your insights with us on social media, leave a comment, or send us feedback. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. and share the episode with your friends, family, and community. Let's keep the conversation going on social media. Amplify the conversation around Black women in the sport of golf and tell us what were your takeaways. What inspired you? Tag us and let us know. And before we sign off, remember, representation matters. Stay tuned for more Cess Talk Sports, BY's Polysports podcast episodes. And last but not least, remember, sports are never just about the game. It's about the stories we tell and the change we create. Up next, we're going to talk about the Black women of NASCAR. Until next time, stay wise and stay engaged. This is Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies and Political Lil. We out.